Maybe I pushed it before it got started. I don't know. Now does it work? Now there's sound. I don't know. Yeah. There is sound now? Perfect. Great. Okay. So we're going to start learning about Hanukkah. 2 weeks today is Hanukkah? 2 weeks tonight. 2 weeks tonight. Amazing. So we'll get started. It comes quick. And what's the connection between Hanukkah and relationships? So there is a midrash. It's not a midrash from the period of Chazal. It's a later midrash. We don't know exactly who wrote it and when, but it's a Jewish midrash written in Hebrew, and it connects the theme that we've been talking about of relationships to Hanukkah. Okay, what was Hanukkah about? So we all know they lit candles, it purified the temple, but why did they revolt? What pushed them? The Alexander the Great conquered the Levant in what year? It's easy to remember. Who remembers what year? It's very easy. Just minus 333. 333. It's very easy to remember. Minus 333. 333. Okay. Alexander the Great conquered the world. Famously, he was greeted by, when he came into the country, the Kohen Gadol, Shimon HaTzadik, went out to meet him. And Alexander the Great bowed down to him, got off his horse and bowed to them. Everybody said, "What? You're Alexander the Great, conqueror of all the worlds. Why are you bowing down to this old Jew?" And what did he say?
He knew what's up.
He knew. He saw in a dream. This is before he said to his people, before every battle, I have a dream. This old man in a beard comes to me and says, "You're going to be great and you're going to be successful." And it's him. Shimon HaTzadik came to him wearing the Kohen Gadol's clothes, and this is a tradition's way of saying that there was great respect at the beginning of the period for the first 160 years. The Ptolemaic Greeks, right after Alexander the Great died, his empire was split between 3 generals, and the general in charge of the land of Israel at first was the Egyptian general, Ptolemy. And so there was Hellenism. There was the influence of the Greek culture was great. But famously, after 160 years ago, or thereabouts, the balance of power changed, and the Seleucid Greeks, the Greeks from the Syrian part of the empire, took over the land of Israel, and they decided to turn the screws and push the Jews to the wall. And maybe it's God's works in mysterious ways, perhaps because it got so bad the Jews had to rebel. If they hadn't rebelled, maybe the process of assimilation, Hellenism, was rampant, right? The Kohen Gadol themselves were Hellenists, Jason, Menelaus, as we learned some of us learned in the morning class. What caused the major rebellion? What caused Matityahu and his sons? Matityahu, the son of Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Of Yochanan Kohen Gadol. What pushed them to the wall so much that they said, we have to stand on our 2 back hind legs. We have to fight against this Hellenizing influence of the Greek culture. What was it? What do you say?
I would say the major point is that forbid Brit Milah.
Famous, good. Brit Milah is well known as one of the major factors. That's no more identifying mark than the first covenant with Abraham. Good. What other things you might have heard?
One of the pivotal moments, at least in the way the story is told, is they tried getting members of the Jewish community to sacrifice to Zeus.
Sacrificing to Zeus, exactly. Avodah Zarah, yeah, absolutely. The pagan, they brought an idol into the temple. This is part of the purifying the temple from the idolatry. Yes.
The ban of reading Torah.
Ban of reading the
That's
Torah.
There's,
Study Torah. That's why there's no Haftarah on Chanukah. There's on Shabbat Chanukah, but every day we read the Torah. Oh, at that point they were not allowed to read Torah, so they read Haftarah instead. Interesting. I didn't know that was connected to that period in particular. But Torah, Milah. Anything else you've heard? That what was the? There was Gzerot Antiochus. Antiochus is the Epiphanes. They say the sages called him Epimanes, the madman. But Antiochus declared something, some terrible decrees against the Jewish religion. It's not clear exactly what it was. I heard a friend of mine's father was some kind of a scholar, and he said that they were called the Hasmoneans. Why are they called the Hasmoneans? Those rebellious rebels from the tribe of Levi, right? The tribe of Kohanim, right? They're called Chashmonaim. Some people say Chashmonah. It's amazing. Chashmonai. So why are they Chashmonai? Chashmonah is the name of a place. It's actually ironic or interesting that the Jews who went in the desert when they left Egypt, they traversed 39 places. Place number 25. Hanukkah's on the 25th of the month of Kislev. It's called Chashmonah. Maybe there's a connection there. But a friend of mine's father, he said, Chodesh, Shabbat, and Milah. Chashmonah stands for Chodesh, Shabbat, and Milah. They forbade them from keeping Shabbat, from doing the Brit Milah, and from keeping the new moon, the new calendar, which of course the new moon represents the Jewish calendar. If you can't keep your own calendar, these are most basic things to Jewish identity. They wanted everybody to become Greek, to assimilate into Greek culture, like everybody did. Till today, we're all Greeks. Haven't you watched the World Cup? It's the version of the Olympics, right? It's the there's a seat here if you like, and yeah, sure, come up close. Please.
For me, the World Cup is more like the version of Coliseum.
Okay, more Rome than Greece. Okay.
Because we have the Olympics.
Right, the Olympics is Greek, of course. So there's the Midrash. Again, it's not from the time of the sages. It's a little bit later, but it has a little bit of a different twist. And I think it rings true, again, not because it was said by the sages, but what we're looking for is what is the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? What is the issue which really made those Judeans, or those Kohanim, the family of Kohanim, rebel in Judah, and eventually they succeeded in purifying the temple, and eventually solidified their independence, somewhat. Independence, they were still under the guise of, ultimately wasn't as successful as even the state of Israel is today in terms of independence. But we speak about the spiritual battle, right? It was a religious persecution and it's a religious war. What we celebrate on Hanukkah is with the oil. Oil represents Torah, represents wisdom. What issue is at the heart of it? Is it Brit Milah? 8 days. Brit Milah is 8 days, and Hanukkah is 8 days. Should we celebrate Shabbat for 8 days, or celebrate the new moon? Or we don't worship Avodah Zarah, but what's the maybe there's one issue. So, without further ado, I'll give these out to you. I think it's actually 3 pages each. You can see it's a packet of 3 each. So some of you are going to have to share. I printed 10. I see that we are 10. Or are we 11? Without counting. 11. So I need one too. That's why. We're going to have to share a little bit. It's a packet. Keep it together. 3 pages. 3 pages each. Yeah. 3 pages each. Don't separate them. So keep those pages together. If you've been dividing them, it's 3 pages. This is called Midrash Ma'aseh Chanukah. Aleph.
Josh.
You have the Hebrew and the English. Maybe that's all I have. So okay, we good? Enough to look on together. Everybody can look on. So. All right, who's going to read for us? Who wants to read?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
It's in Jeremiah 50:33. Thus said Yukevavkeetzot, the children of Yehuda are oppressed, and so too are the children of Israel. And it is written in Jeremiah 50:34, their Redeemer is mighty. His name is Yukevavkeetzot. He will champion their cause so as to give rest to the earth and unrest to the inhabitants of Babylon.
Keep going.
Yeah. It is said that in the days of the Seleucid
Greeks, yeah.
Greeks, that this verse was needed when they, the Greeks in this case, conspired against the people of Israel, saying, let's make some new decrees on them so that they will reject our God and believe in our false idols. They stood and decreed, every person of Israel that makes a latch or a lock at the entrance to his home will be pierced by the sword. And why did they do this? So that the people of Israel would not have dignity or self-possession. Because every house that doesn't have a door doesn't have any dignity or modesty. And anyone who wants to go in, goes in day or night. When the people of Israel saw this, they stood and took down all the doors of their houses, and they couldn't eat or drink or use their beds, because of thieves and robbers and Greek creepers.
I don't know who did this translation. It's an open source. I pulled it from the internet, but it pritze yavanim. Pritze, it means people who are lewd, who are sexually. Yeah. Creepers. Okay. To be a creep is a pretty modern word for saying somebody who's sexually deviant or inappropriate. Yes, go ahead. And their eyes
didn't see sleep in day or night. And regarding them, the verse is, you shall be in terror night and day. Deuteronomy 28:66. They said before the blessed Holy One, Master of the world, how much can we bear? Hashem said to them, just because of the sin of neglecting the mitzvah of mezuzah, even so, some reprieve will be found in this decree. The people of Israel were left with no doors, and there's nothing but a door to restrain a husband from his wife's passion or fury. As it is written, go to your rooms, my people, from Isaiah 26:20. They withstood this decree for 3 years.
3 years they lived without doors, according to this midrash.
Since the Greeks saw that the people of Israel were withstanding the decree and not a one fell to anything bad, they stood and decreed a new decree and announced, every person of Israel that has a donkey or an ox will engrave on its horns that it has no part in the Eloah of Israel. And why? So that the people of Israel would not be able to eat or milk, nor cheese, and also wouldn't have animals for plowing. They said to themselves, we know they won't be able to withstand this decree. And there's a at the end.
I don't know who wrote this translation.
Same guy as the Creepers guy.
Same guys that wrote the Creepers.
That word is internal.
Open source, it has its benefits, but I mean, I read this midrash 30 years ago, and I taught this midrash in Hebrew, but I was teaching a Hebrew-speaking group, and I didn't need the translation. Now I wanted to look it up and print it for you, and I said, okay, I need English. I typed it in, and there's Hebrew and English, but it's weird.
How was the laughing part in Hebrew?
It doesn't say. It doesn't say.
When the people of Israel heard this, they were dismayed indeed. They said, heaven forbid that we would reject our Eloah. They stood and sold their animals, both kosher and not kosher. And the people of Israel would walk on their feet, and regarding them it is written, I saw slaves on horses and princes walking. From Ecclesiastes 10:7.
Because they couldn't make shoes out of leather, because they couldn't use the animals, because the animals had to say Avodah Zarah on the animals. Okay, they're really being pushed. And we're suffering. Go ahead.
The blessed Holy One said to them, this is because you failed to go up to Yerushalayim for the 3 harvest festivals to make sacrificial offerings and to give the priestly gifts. Therefore the verse was fulfilled in you. Your oxen will be slaughtered before your eyes. But even so, some reprieve will be found in this decree. Stags and deer and all sorts of kosher birds came and entered the houses of Israel, since there were no doors. And they came and caught them and slaughtered them and ate meat and praised the blessed Holy One, saying, Blessed is the one who overturned the plans of our enemies to good. Because if there had been doors, how could the wild animals have come into our houses? Question mark.
Oh, okay. So it's
The blessed, yeah. The
some
blessed
providence,
Holy
yeah.
One replied to them, You cared about my honor and did not renounce me. Therefore I arranged wild animals for you to eat. When the Greeks saw that Israel had withstood the decree, they stood and decreed, Every person whose wife goes to the mikveh will be pierced by the sword, and the one who sees her will have her for wife, and her sons as slaves. When Israel heard this, they refrained from using their beds, and when the Greeks heard that, they said, It worked. The people of Israel are not using their beds. We get to use their beds. When Israel saw thus, they returned to their wives, though their wives had not emerged, against their husbands' will. They said, Master of the universe, we have no choice. It's not for our good. It's that a woman does not want to live with her husband without her pleasure. The blessed Holy One said to them, Since you did it without intention, I will purify you. And Hashem opened for each and every one of them a spring inside his home, and their wives would immerse inside their homes, and the verse was fulfilled in them. You will draw water with joy from the waters of redemption. When Yud-Kei-Vav-Kei washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, the verse was fulfilled in them. When the Greeks saw that Israel was not affected by their decrees, they stood and decreed upon them a bitter and ugly decree, that a bride would not go in to her husband on her wedding night, but rather to the local commander. When Israel heard this, their hands became weak and their energy dissipated, and they refrained from betrothals. And the daughters of Israel would mature and grow old as virgins, and the verse was fulfilled in them. Her maidens are unhappy, and Yerushalayim is dead. And the Greeks would abuse the maidens of Israel. This situation continued for 3 years and 8 months, until the marriage of the daughter of the high priest Matityahu of the Hashmonaim, named Elazar. On their wedding day, she was seated on a palanquin. At the time of the feast, all of the great men of Israel gathered in honor of Matityahu and the Hashmonaim, who were the greatest men of their generation. And when everyone was sitting down to eat, Hannah, the daughter of Matityahu, stood up from her palanquin. What's a palanquin?
I think it.
Sofa.
Oh, a sofa?
I think like an eating sofa, right?
It's maybe because
It's some kind of a raised platform area where everybody could see. That's the main thing, I think.
And clapped her hands one on the other, and tore off her royal garment and stood before all of Israel, revealed before her father and her mother and her groom. When her brothers saw this, they were embarrassed, and they put their faces in the ground and tore their clothes, and stood to kill her. She said, Listen, my brothers and uncles, so what? I stand naked before you righteous men with no sexual transgression, and you get all incensed? And you're not becoming incensed about sending me into the hands of an uncircumcised man who will abuse me? You've got something to learn from Shimon and Levi, the brothers of Dinah, who were just they helped them, and they were not destroyed. And you are 5 brothers, Yehuda, Yochanan, Yonatan, Shimon, and Elazar. And you, youth of the priesthood, are more than 200 men. Put your faith in the Machon, and he will help you. As it is said, there's no stopping you from winning. And she opened her mouth and wailed and said, Master of the world, if you don't have mercy on us, have mercy on the holiness of the great name that is called on us, and avenge us. Right then her brothers became incensed, and said, Come, let us have a council and decide what to do. They took counsel from one another and said, Let us take our sister, and we will go to the great king and say to him, Our sister is the daughter of the high priest. There's no one greater in Israel than our father. And we thought it not fitting that our sister should sleep with a local officer, rather with the king who is as great as us. Then we'll go in and kill him, and we'll leave. And then we'll start with his servants and with his officers. And Hashem will help us and strengthen us. They took this counsel, and the blessed Holy One made for them a great salvation. And they heard a heavenly voice from inside of the Holy of Holies. The youth of Israel have been victorious over Antioch. So too will the Machon bring salvation in our days.
Whoa! R-rated Midrash. It's such a powerful Midrash. I don't know who wrote it, but it's answering the question we asked before, that, what is the issue that, forced the rebellion after 160 years of being under the influence of Hellenistic culture. And so they made some decrees. What was the decrees that made the difference, that made the rebellion? Bowing down to an idol. People that were bowing down to idols, bringing the idols into the temple even. This midrash wants to point its finger in the direction of intimacy, in the direction of relationships within the family and the purity and the holiness of the Jewish home. So I thought we should discuss it a little bit in this class. It's also mentioned that these rebels, at least according to this, what was she saying? Who was the precedent for for rebelling against sexual impropriety against the Jewish people? No. Those are the names of the sons. Those are the names of what's the precedent in history, of Jewish history, of defending the honor? Shimon and Levi in Shechem, which is this week's Parsha. If you haven't read it yet, it's only Sunday, I know. Sorry? The zealots of the tribes, exactly. And what were they protesting against? Hayasech, what does it say? Hachazona ya'aseh et achotenu. Can our daughter be like a harlot? Can they make a harlot out of our daughter? So this idea of the purity of the Jewish home has to be protected. It has to be fought for. It's an amazing connection to Hanukkah. And, I always thought, you don't see it so much in Chutz La'aretz. When I grew up, I was lighting candles. In our family, we lit candles in the window. And that's really because we lived in Canada. I would say there was a little bit of anti-Semitism here and there, but we weren't really afraid. But, in medieval times, Rabbeinu Tam writes that we light our Hanukkah candles inside. On the table, on the kitchen table, on the dining room table. What about publicizing the miracle? It's dangerous. Couldn't. Lit the candle inside. If you actually look at the original source, as you're going to in the coming weeks, as we prepare for Hanukkah, where should the Chanukiah stand?
In the opening of your garden, of your entrance to the home.
In the entrance of the home. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says, when you enter the home, you have, on your right-hand side, you have mezuzah, as the Midrash mentions, the mezuzah. And on the left hand, you have the Chanukiah. Why? Every other mitzvah we do, in shul. Where do we shake the lulav? In shul. Where do we pray the Hallel? In shul. Where do we light the Shabbos candles? Inside the home. What is this at the doorway? Strange mitzvah to have inside the doorway. This midrash explains that as well. It says that's exactly the point. That's exactly the battle. The battle is over the doorway. Now that can mean a number of things. Also, they throw in, of course, avodah zarah and kosher food, and so food and sex, and these are basic needs. And avodah zarah, of course, is one of the worst sins that you can do. So, I think that in general, the doorway is significant when you speak about what you let in the house and what you let out of the house, right? When you create a home, essentially what you're doing is building some kind of a filter. I sometimes see the Hanukkah candles at the doorway as some kind of like a sieve. Is that how you pronounce it? Like a sifter, where you like separate the good from the bad. And so nowadays, hopefully, you all have on your phones. Everybody should have on the internet. You should have a filter, right? That you keep out the pornography, to keep out the bad stuff. Internet's an amazing thing, but there's a lot of bad stuff out there, right? But so I'm in favor of filters as opposed to just, my son is now in a Hasidic group where it's totally forbidden to have a smartphone. Only a dumb phone is allowed. It's hard to get them. I know all about it because he keeps losing his phones. I buy him another one. But they don't allow smartphones because there's so much bad stuff there. It's just it's a problem. People get addicted to gambling, to pornography, and we have to create those filters to make sure that we take the good and throw out the bad. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but that's what we have to learn. Just like we learned how to use knives. Knives can kill. Knives can cut your salad. Knives are an important part of human society. Fire can burn down your house. Without fire, you can't cook and build and create. So there's a lot of dangerous things out there. So I think the doorway is very symbolic of what we let inside from Greek culture, in general, the culture of Greece, right? They are the leaders in architecture and aesthetics and democracy and philosophy. And Greek culture is very valuable, gave tremendous things to the human society, to civilization. But we have to know how to filter out the bad parts. And what, of course, paganism, we reject it. It was an amazing thought we learned this morning with some of you that this is the fight against paganism, that the Hanukkah that we won. Perhaps we won, and then after us, Christianity and Islam, as daughter religions, in some way, formed this was a pivotal moment in the fight against paganism in the entire world. It still exists in some dark corners of Asia, but that's another discussion for another time. But for the most part, Christianity and Islam were sort of like the agents of Judaism to this rejection of the paganism, which was such a big part of the Greek culture, was rejected. So that's in general. But let's focus in on our topic at hand and say that the door is not just a filter for anything, and doesn't those candles that I light at my door, I'm careful to light them at the door. On the outside of the door, like the original custom. And it's very meaningful to me. And those candles within the doorway, they sort of look like a filter, like they stand like posts. You have to sort of get between them, and what gets in and what gets out is something that we think about every Hanukkah. But particularly the beginning of the Midrash and the end of the Midrash is about sexuality. It's about intimacy. If you don't have a door, you don't have intimacy. Matovo alecha Yaakov, all the way back to the Bilam's curse, turned into blessing of the Jewish people. He blessed their tents. How goodly are their tents, Jacob? Chazal explained that the tents were preserving modesty, that the doors of the tents were staggered so that people didn't look in on each other and everybody had privacy. Only when you have privacy, that's a big part of we use the terms, we're moving between them, but it's significant. This is not a class about sex. It's not. Sex is not about sex. Sex is a basic drive. It's a basic, that's an act. I prefer to talk about intimacy. The goal that God gave us, this tool, is for it to draw us closer together, to create, but it has to be creating in a structure which creates intimacy. And this is what this challenge was. Of course, it's like the Olympics. I enjoy sports just like anybody else. But we have to be careful that it doesn't become merely physical. You could turn the physical beauty in the human body into an idol of sorts, and sexuality can be turned into an idol as well, and you could become addicted to sexuality, just the act and the drive and the physical side of things. The point that the Torah that's expressed in this midrash is trying to tell us is that we can elevate this physical side of life and this powerful part of life. How so? By making a home, bringing it inside the home, closing the door, and putting it in the context where you're creating intimacy and closeness between the couple. And this was a fight. This is why the decree of the Greeks, the Seleucid Greeks, was that you're not allowed to have doors. It's not just about the mezuzah, and but it's about the having the door itself and not allowing them to have relations. And then they forbid them from going to the mikvah. And ultimately, I can't. Let's cut to the chase. I think the highlight of this midrash, of course, is the wedding night when they decreed that every bride has to go to the governor first. You can get married, sure, but it's not going to be private. It's not going to be intimate. You're not allowed to have that. It's sort of destroying the privacy, the whole idea that there's kiddushin, that Arei at mekudeshet li, you are sanctified to me, only for me. The essence of kiddushin is that this woman is forbidden to everybody else. It's only for you. And that creates a certain bond, a certain intimacy, a certain which creates holiness. Just like God, there's only one God. He's holy and he's not like anything else. So the bond between a Jewish couple is supposed to be like that. And what does she do to spur them to rebel? She tears off her dress. And very shocked. Ooh, it's not tznius, right? You heard the word tzanua. It's not modest. It's the opposite, nakedness. You're supposed to. There's laws that you have to cover up, and the laws. What are they expressing? That it's not that the body's ugly. It's not that the Greeks were in favor of the body and Judaism was against the body. That's a simplistic understanding. And we cover up the body because we're ashamed of it. That's not the Jewish idea of beauty. Beauty is there when it's in the context. There was a story that's told of a great artist who made a beautiful painting, and all of the kingdom came to see it. They were so amazed by this painting. It's such exquisite art, and everybody was so wowed. And the king came, and he was not a great art aficionado. He didn't really know the difference. But, he wanted the people to be happy, and he wanted to govern the people. And he came by and he took a look and says, this is really, I see, it's really popular. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this painting, instead of where it was, hanging in the royal chambers or in the museum or wherever it was, in the art studio, in the art gallery. He says, everybody should be able to enjoy, if it's such beautiful art, I want all the people of my kingdom to enjoy this art. And he says, let's put it on the major highway, in the major thoroughfare, as a billboard. And the artist was shook into his very core, and he was so upset. everybody else realized that this is the worst thing you can do. You can't, something that's beautiful has to be protected, has to be intimate. It's not appropriate to just share it on a billboard on the side of the road. You're sort of bringing down the beauty, the glory of this beauty. Just because you appreciate it doesn't mean it's got to be plastered. In our generation, everything right away you put on Facebook, you share with the entire world, and it's a generation where anything that's appreciated has to be public. This is very much against what we're teaching here today, that the beauty of the husband and the wife is for inside the home, and it loses its dignity, it loses its holiness if it's in public. And so that's what this bride, Hannah, they call her. She shocked them by showing her nakedness. And they go, so you're upset about this. What about the large-scale desecration of holiness, which is decreed upon us? And after all the stages, this is the one that shook the Maccabeans into their revolt to protect the purity of the Jewish home, the purity of the intimacy of marital relations. And this is a very powerful midrash. And I think that, we gave a few hints to the elements in Greek culture, which we have to, which we're celebrating, that we fought against them. It wasn't only about Avodah Zarah. It wasn't only about Brit Milah is an interesting one, because Brit Milah is connected to the sexual organ. So it could be that this tradition that we have, that they forbade the circumcision, maybe that has something to do also with the idea of the challenge against the Jewish concept of marital purity. And also one stage I skipped over, I didn't refer to, and that is mikvah. You're not allowed to sleep with your wife until she goes to the mikvah. What did Hashem do? He made them a miracle, and they had the springs that they discovered in the privacy of their own home, or somewhat privacy of the home. They didn't have doors, but they had mikvahs. So I don't know how exactly that works practically. But the idea is, again, the attack against the Jewish home is something that the Jewish people rebelled against, and ultimately what we celebrate on Hanukkah is that we're preserving the Jewish home. Questions, comments? Something that strikes you about this story and this framing of the rebellion against the religious persecution? This is saying what's the religious persecution? It's persecuting the Jewish concept of tzniut and of marriage and of holiness and of intimacy of the Jewish home. Yeah.
So why did we let women get married?
At all? Well, we wouldn't have children if we didn't get married, or we wouldn't have Avta l'reacha kamocha, everything we've talked about how important it is to create a relationship between a man and a woman, and creating these relationships. So why does the Torah allow to have relationships?
No, why in that time didn't they say, okay, we also don't have any more marriages until this decree goes away?
Well, the Midrash is saying that the fight, it took years historically. There was years, there was ups and downs. They didn't. Some people would say we haven't gotten rid of the Hellenistic influence until today, but it's going through different stages. We can analyze exactly what each stage represents, but we see that the Jewish people reacted. God reacted to the reaction. He approved. He said this was a punishment for your sins. There's a lot of elements here in this midrash. We didn't get to all of them. We're not going to get into the reward and the punishment aspect, but it's definitely the Jewish people were trying to deal with it. But survival is what got us here today, literally. And the Midrash is showing that they were trying to, live with the persecution as much as they could, until ultimately they had to make a greater scale rebellion. Does that explain? Another question or comment? Anybody heard this midrash before?
No.
No. Amazing.
We
Very-
wouldn't tell that for kids.
Exactly. This is not for at home. We should have this video on the on the website. It should be R-rated, restricted. Yeah, but exactly. You'll have your daughters putting on the play about what did we learn in school this year? She rips off her dress. You don't want that. But sometimes you have to shock the public into realizing that not going to the mikveh, that's you're destroying the marriage. It's destroying the future of Judaism. This can't continue. It's not just about Avodah we won't have any food. Okay, we'll manage without food. God will do a miracle. He'll bring us the wild animals which we are not keeping, and He gave us food. We'll eat other food. But yeah, without marriage and without families, there is no Judaism. Yeah. Comments. Seder. We should be strong and learn how to create strong Jewish homes and protect the purity of ourselves, our wives, our children, and learn how to do that in a healthy way. Not rejecting sexuality at all, but putting it in the proper context, in a holy context. So, and Hashem will, just like He showed us salvation in the times of the Hasmoneans, should show us salvation again today. The attack on the Jewish home has not ceased. We have to learn. That's why we're doing in these classes, learning how to build Jewish homes in holiness and purity. Bezrat Hashem. Okay.